convention. I should be able to be heard, but anyhow. The President, Mr. Dr. Om Sharma, and organizer, Mr. Manoj Vajpayee and his team, and all the friends sitting on the dais, and especially those who are in the audience. It's my special privilege to be talking to you, members of BSNA in the year 2011. I did give a keynote address in the year 1999 in Sacramento, which is published. I think it is still on the website, and it might be helpful if you went back to what I was thinking in 1999. This year, we had a wonderful presentation by Dr. Kaushik on the Brahman values for the youth. When I suggested the topic to Om Sharma ji on his call that I should participate and say something at this convention, I gave him the title of Satchidananda. And this particular profound concept, if you like the term, has been kind of engrossing my attention for a number of years because of its very unique nature and profound significance, as well as relevance to us human beings through the ages. I was happy, however, to hear that, I forgot your name, that you offered or performed Yajna Pavitra ceremony for your sons who get up in the morning and do their prayers and activities. I also tried to do the same. Mine was performed at age 18. And even to this day, I will not eat cereal, grain, without taking bath. Even in the plane, I go to the bathroom, take a little water, sprinkle on myself with mantra, Om Avitova Pavitova Sarasnamgatova, and then I go and eat. Now, I'm mentioning this, sharing this personal characteristic with you because if the Gayatri Mantra had any significance, any meaning, it is primarily to me personally and to others second. When I asked my father that why do I have to get up in the morning in the village and go to take bath, service will not be given, I have to carry my own balti and take and pull out all my own water at age 8 and take bath before sunrise. So I said, why do I have to do it? He said two things. He said several things at the time, but two I remember. He said, A, I'm asking you to do it, and I do it myself. The latter part was very important, because he said, I do it myself. So, those of you who think that your children should know about Brahman values, think about yourself first. That's why I'm repeating this. Secondly, he said that in the village when you go about, a 60-year person says, I touch bacha, I paralyze. Child, I touch thy feet. And you say, okay, live happily, live without sickness and others. Say, what entitles you to say those words of blessings? This is it. That you have to get up at 5 o'clock and perform the puja. That entitles you to offer blessing, give blessings to others. Otherwise, what do you have got to do? Nothing. Third, he said very profoundly, like you said. He said, when you grow up, you can give it up. The longer I have lived, it has been difficult and virtually impossible to give it up. The reason is that over the years, I have internalized the authority, the meaning, the significance. It is part of me. How can you give it up? So your sons will probably make it a part of themselves and will not give it up. I know I have a long talk and time is short, but I'd like to make another general comment. Many of you, some of you might know, I was involved in California textbook controversy. And this involved how India and Hinduism is portrayed in 6th grade world civilization textbooks. Hindus wanted to make some corrections. They said, well, find a scholar who will say that what you are asking is right. They were fortunate, and it was an accident, they found me. And they hired me, the Department of Education, University of California, hired me to evaluate those things. When I evaluated and endorsed about 75 to 80% of what they wanted. Others were there in the community who didn't want that change to happen. Why? Because you know, in all the textbooks that exist today, tons of them in the library, there are very few that tell you about Hinduism in a correct fashion, including some of my old teachers. One was mentioned by Dr. Kaushik, Professor A.L. Basham. I did my PhD with him in London. And his book is still classic, published in 1954. And I also used that for my students. He was very kind to me. And one day I said, but Bash, shouldn't you revise that book? So he says, in his own way, that's how he used to treat me. He said, my dear boy, I have to write a new one. I cannot revise that one. That means it has been, there are portions of it which are dated. Basham wrote that book as a young man, not someone who produced over 110 PhDs in ancient Indian history. His record is the highest. I don't know anybody else. So the point that I'm trying to make is in California textbook controversy, they hired somebody who is Professor Michael Wilson from Harvard University, endowed professor of Sanskrit and Indian studies. To make his story short, the California Department of Education went back on everything that I had said. And he didn't want to change anything. He wanted to endorse everything that was in the textbook, except for the most outrageous changes, such as Hindi is written in Urdu, in Arabic script. Now, how preposterous can you get? And a Hindu praying like Allahu Akbar. People holding hands. There are pictures in those books that your students, that your children read even today. good library. So he and I had a 5.5-hour debate, one-to-one, with Department of Education personnel, top brass, sitting there with 2 attorneys. Of course, we solved some problems, not all of them. But most of them I couldn't, because Hinduism is taught that you have gods and goddesses, Devi and Devata, but no Bhagwan. Okay. Because you have no concept of who Bhagwan is. And when you are growing up in India, you say the name of Bhagwan, but you will only come back to Devi and Devata. So there is a dichotomy. The second thing they immediately jump on, the rituals. Because they don't understand it, they can condemn it as highly demonstrable feature of superstition. Then we say, okay, now what should do next? Then they talk about caste and Dalits. So their perspective on caste is dictated by the Dalits of today, their ideology, quote unquote. So many. Then they talk about women, and when they talk about women, then what do we talk about? Sati. So any point is that whatever you are reading in most of the textbooks is so wrong and misleading that you are not only facing the problem of knowing who you are, but whatever you are learning is totally against what you have been. And that is the biggest problem we have. Because since Macaulay's name was mentioned, Macaulay did the greatest disservice to India that anybody could have ever done. Why? And we should be thankful to you, otherwise we won't be here. Because we learned English. Because he made us to forget our own language. Because the language that was studied, Sanskrit, it was studied by the learned, literate ones. During Mughal period, people learned Persian to get a consonant. But it wasn't, there were thousands of Sanskrit schools and not so thousands of Persian schools. But since 1835, when English education was introduced by Lord Macaulay, English had become the basic language of education. And today, I'm talking in English. I read in English. See, when I have to talk in Hindi, of course I can do it, but it is not what I normally do. So we have that problem also. So our responsibility, whether we are in golden years or younger years, is try to understand who we have been. And then ask the question, are we what we have been? The third question, should I be what we have been? Or should I be who I am and what everybody else should think that we should be? Now, that is a very important question to ask. The other thing is that the people must come to face with, is my life going to be just being successful in my occupation, going to have parties, have vacations, and then have some kind of elementary belief and kick the bucket? Or is there something more to this life? Now, these are the questions that everybody eventually will ask. But probably the time that when you will ask that, many younger ones, when they will ask that question, and many of us are asking that question, it in your later years. My thesis is that people have built Hindu temples here because they are on the wrong side in their life. They are going to kick the bucket sooner or later. So they say, well, let's make sure that we go to the right place. That's why people will give money to swamis, to temples, not to education. They forget that unless you are educated, those temples and swamis will give you very little help. Now, Kaushikji mentioned a very important question. Virtually most of us had grown up in our families as Hindus. But if your son and daughter or your neighbor or a stranger ask you on the road, you say you are Hindu, what is Hinduism? You know anything? It's very hard to offer any kind of explanation. And your son and daughter is not going to take what you say that you are a Hindu and do the puja or go to temple. They will do it when they are minors later on. No. Because they will ask you the question, why? You have to explain to them. We have never articulated our beliefs, our philosophies, our way of life, our concepts, our ideas. Never. How many had? Just ask yourself. I didn't do it myself. I had compartmentalized these things. But, of course, I'm in the classroom. That's where I have to, so I have to answer. But you will not know who you are or what your Hinduism is unless you are able to explain it to others. So that is the mantra that we all should remember, recite, and tell others to recite. Because you have to do that. There is no way out of it. If you can't explain, forget about it. If you can't articulate, forget about the idea. With these general remarks, let me come back to my topic, theme. And theme of my presentation, I will be rather brief. I have prepared 90 minutes talk. That's what I'm using.